What's up, guys? It's the Bad Wolf, also known as the Man in Black, International Man of Mysteries, and Dr. Evil. Depending on who you ask, you might get that response too. I'm just a normal guy down the block who happens to have a passion for studying everything private, cryptic, and interesting. All right, in this case, the Maritime Admiralty jurisdiction that operates in the United States, subservient to the United States of America and the Constitution. You know, normal stuff. So this particular video is about, we're going to essentially say this is a revocation of election. But what I mean by that is that we may have been doing things slightly wrong. What do I mean by that? I mean that normally the way we've been told to do these things is use a, you know, fill out the W-4 the correct way, or use a 8233 or the W-8BN or the 15103, 1040 NR, et cetera, with our employers. Now, or the, was it 673? Yeah, I think there's another one too. 99% of the time, because the employer is the withholding agent, all they have to do by law is to accept whatever you give them as a method to your revocation. In other words, they don't have the lawful capacity to tell you you're not who you say you are. And because we know under 8 U.S.C. 1101 22A and B, 8 U.S.C. 1401, and other codes, 18 U.S.C. 112, and so on, 8 Foreign Affairs Manual, Section 300, 301, we know who we are now. We know that we have a private side, which is a national, state citizen, U.S. national, non-resident, also regarded as a non-resident alien for tax purposes, state citizen, et cetera, et cetera. We have that as a private side. We also know, because of those other laws and codes quoted, that we also have or are born with or legally provided with the U.S. citizen, which is the public side. We have two. Unfortunately, our name is then tainted and can be used in either or, but because it's been tainted with the public side, they don't understand the private side because your name is in their database, it's registered. So it's tainted and it's never going to truly ever be used and viewed as completely private because they don't understand, like me and the legal departments. They just don't. They don't get it. So that being the case, we must then make things private. So one of the other ways that you can not pay taxes at your job is to create a tax exempt entity. It's also known as a pass-through, and you can run your compensation through that entity when done correctly. We've done this for many people, including police officers. Oh yeah, many people who are police officers contact me and say, Mr. Lovett, I've seen your videos. I know you don't like cops. No, that's not what I said at all. What I said is I don't like anybody who does not comply with the law. And most officers are only trained in public transportation laws and regulations under the state's corporation or legal entity, not the Constitution, which is the superior law and gave the states the ability to own their own little bubble on paper over the same jurisdiction, physical geographical landmass as the republic, or say like Florida state. So you got Constitution, which is the land, and then you've got the state of jurisdiction operating over this. All right. But I've already made videos on that, so I digress. This particular video is about the fact that for those people out there who've been doing the revocation and on the off skirt that it didn't work the way you want, you were afraid to use the other methods or use the other methods and they still didn't like all of that, even though you could sue that employer for not recognizing it because they haven't provided you in writing, signed off by the legal department or the highest legal person there who's going to be held legally responsible for that decision to be sued in the federal district court. about your rights under 8 U.S.C. 1503, deprivation of rights, denial of rights and privileges as a national. We'll leave that alone for now. Also, side note, parchment, that police officers and various other public officials cannot do the W-8BEN because in office, they have to be regarded as a U.S. citizen. But once again, we already talked about how to bypass that legally, which is avoidance. In the IRS has a code. That code is 25.1.1.3.3, and it's under tax avoidance versus tax evasion. Those are two separate things. And when you use that code and you know how to use it properly, you are tax exempt. Okay. Now, for anybody who this might seem a little hard to follow, we can do a consultation. I've done this already for police officers and numerous other agents of the government and states and whatever else. Okay. You guys who are public just have to do it slightly different than regular private citizens. All right. So for let's say that all those things have failed, you're afraid to sue them and your employer. This is for the private citizen, not for the public officers. Maybe it's because you need to adjust how you're telling them you want to be compensated. Now, I've read through all the IRS manuals and I've debunked their revocation of election letter, not clearly not written by the legal department. Um, and there's actually some grammatical errors in there, but we'll leave that alone for now. Let's take a look at another option that people can use, which has been in our face the entire time. Shot for this goes out to Prime Pay. No sponsorship from them to me or vice versa. Fair use, it's on their website. This is general information, so I'm not responsible for them. They're not responsible for me. By no means are they held responsible or liable for anything right here. Standard, fair use, etc. And let's take a look at what they have to say, because I'm going to say right now, I'm pretty sure that this is the correct way to do the revocation without having to do all the extra steps, layers, forms, mailing, this, that, and the other, is to literally request from your employer, as long as they don't have a problem with it, for you to be paid as a W-9. So let's take a look here. I'm going to have the AI read through all of this. This is going to take about 5 minutes. Thanks to Kate Super. If that is, in fact, your last name, you're not an AI. It's a weird last name. This is what is the difference between forms W-4, W-2, W-9, 1099-NEC. All right. Let's get going.
As a business owner or operator, it is hard to keep so many different types of tax forms straight. When running a small business, it is important to know which form is used when, along with the compliance concerns to watch out for. The most common forms you will use in business and during tax time are forms W-4, W-2, W-9, and 1099 NEC. Let's dig into each form type to provide a clear distinction, helping your business run most effectively. W-4 form, paying employees. A W-4 form, also known as the Employees Withholding Allowance Certificate, is filled out by an employee. It is how the employer knows how much to tax to withhold throughout the year.
Now, the old school way of doing this, and though I've seen the IRS say, well, there's some people that try to put zero here, they didn't say you couldn't. And on their website under tax avoidance, It literally says when doing this, puts the person on a zero file list. So the IRS, we're going to say that the person who created the rebuttal document is an uninformed individual working agent for that company who did not run that paper past the legal department. You absolutely, as a private citizen and national, U.S. national, on your claim can put zero. Okay. This is the old school way of doing it. And then you write exempt next to it because you're not a federal, state, or government worker or a public officer. If you are to be elected as a national state citizen, educationally speaking, as are all my videos, do your own research, then when they ask you, are you a U.S. citizen, you should put down, cross out U.S. citizen and put national or state citizen, or if you're from Florida, Floridian. That's the old school way of doing the W-4. Let's keep going.
Year. The amount withheld will be based on the allowances claimed. The more allowances, the lower amount of federal taxes withheld from each paycheck. The personal.
Now remember, before, what was it, 1935 or 37, somewhere in there was no federal income tax. Everything was done by tariffs. So like Trump, don't like Trump, whatever, that's up to you. But you were always allowed to make a donation of towards the federal debt and the federal government. You were always allowed to do that. But what they did is they got the American people off of the tariff, or excuse me, in America or United States Corp, they did away with the tariffs for the most part, and then passed the buck onto the American people to then be able to do business with other agencies, foreign governments, etc., nations, making it cheaper for them to do business with us, to incentivize them to do business with us. But now that we are the most powerful and biggest consumer of all their products, Trump, Elon Musk, anybody who's watching, because I know some of you guys do watch it on the top half, here's my thought. Put tariffs on a number of the large consumer industries out there, but within reason. Instead of getting rid of the IRS altogether, make a standard 10%, but make that for everybody, corporations and everything, unless they're tax exempt and doing it the Badwolf way. Because then you're going to make more money, because these businesses make so much money, and 10% from them would cover and more than pay for thousands of us. And then so we're getting money on both halves. That's just me. Or a small tariff on all things brought in, and then get rid of the IRS. One of the two.
Personal allowances worksheet that is provided with a Form W-4 helps employees calculate how many allowances to claim on the form. Prime Pay has a Form W-4 assistance calculator to provide to your employees when they're filling out a Form W-4, ensuring they claim the right number of allowances. Some employees may want to update their withholding allowances throughout the year. The time to do this, other than hire date, would be when there is a life event like marriage, birth of a child, etc.
Now remember, marriage is considered a state of, meaning the corporation, product. Government doesn't get involved in this because you can do this yourself through common law. Why anybody is still getting married on the state level, I don't know. And why anybody's getting married without having your stuff in a trust beforehand, I don't know. I really don't know. And birth of a child, well, we don't use child. That's a product of the state. So we say either nativity of a biological offspring or something of that nature. Just as a heads up. Let's keep going.
What is the difference between forms as a business? The most let's a W-4, the personal allowances worksheet that is provided with some employees may want W-2 form, summary of wages and withholdings form, summary of wages and withholdings. A W-2 form, wage and tax statement, shows the income and taxes withheld from an employee's pay for the year and is necessary to file your taxes. Employment taxes, like Social Security taxes and Medicare taxes, amount to 15.3% of a worker's gross wages. Employers pay half of this, 7.65%, and withhold the other half from W-2 employee paychecks. While a W-4 form instructs employers what to take out while collecting employee personal data, the W-2 form is a summary of the wages paid and what was withheld throughout the year, thanks to the W-4. While a W-4 form is completed by the employee, W-2 forms are completed by employers. The IRS requires employers to provide employees copies of their W-2 forms by no later than January 31st.
This is because the IRS and the government working together want to make sure that if you're responsible for paying taxes as a taxpayer, which is not everybody, but everybody's capable and has the potential of it, depending on what event you've done, which may or may not be taxable. The employer is the withholding agent for the government, basically the snitch. If you use the term employee, which most places are not going to let you not have this on your statements or whatever else. But if you could get away from using that term, I would, because to be employed is business, commercial, public. That's what this is their words. Almost any time where you see a document with a number on it, it's their stuff, which means if it's their stuff, anything then underneath it and on it, these terms, employer, zip code, control number, non-qualified, dependent, that means these things are all theirs. Income, state income, federal income, local income, because they own those words. You won't see things like compensation or whatever else. They own those words. You use their words, you are using their stuff. Use their stuff, you must be one of them. Like, I wouldn't go run down in the hood and throw up the gang signs and be like, yeah, what's up? I'm one of y'all. Because either they're going to whoop my butt or worse, or they're going to jump me or bless me in. And then I'm one of them. And I better start doing and paying my fees to the powers that be. But because this is how we normally do things, and we are making money commercially, but we have the right to have it regarded as private for private citizens, not public officers. We have to use their forms, but we have to then use them and fill them out the correct ways.
What is the difference between forms W-4?
Okay. So now we're going to jump down to the coup d'etat, which is the one that we should be using when working for a company. Now, most of them aren't going to have a problem. Matter of fact, they're going to love you a little bit more as long as they don't have any restrictions on hiring W-9, but most of them have W-9s already, whether you know about it or not. All the W-9 means is that you're saying I'm not a taxable U.S. citizen, but I'm independent, contractor, or freelance for the company. I still want you to pay me, but I'm an individual, which means I'm living, and I don't want you to take any taxes out. I'll take care of that if I have any. So let's see what they have to say about this. This is really the way we should be doing it. Okay, so this, once again, this is another option if you're going to be living private. So let's see what they have to say.
If you have any other individuals or companies.
Now they're stating this as they're speaking to the company itself. So they're saying if you, the company, have any other individuals, meaning living people, generally not taxable, but can make an election to be taxed, or companies, which are generally taxable.
Companies that are doing work for your business, but they are not a W-2 employee, have them complete a W-9 form prior to doing work for you.
So what do they just say here? So if here they say gathering info of a non-employee. So they're telling you you're not an employee, which means you're not a public worker. You do work because it says right here, doing work for the business, but you want to be regarded as not an employee, not a U.S. citizen. And the opposite, just like for us, if you sign your name up and register it, you're a resident, a resident. So the opposite of a resident in their world is then a non-resident. So in their world, if you are a taxable employee and you utilize the term non-employee, and you're an individual, you're a Floridian, an Illinoisan, a New Yorker, a Californian, let's read and see what else they have to say about talking to your HR to be regarded and compensated as a W-9.
You. A common example of who will fill this form out for you is an independent contractor or freelancer. A quick note about independent contractors. It's important to pay careful attention to what constitutes an independent contractor versus a full-time employee, especially for a business. Why? Misclassifying an employee as an independent contractor may lead to hefty financial penalties.
That's the government's talk to always try to scare the company to make sure that they're doing everything perfect. Period. Dot, dot, dot. But let's continue to see, now that we get past the scare tactics, what else is going on?
With penalties that can include a fine of up to $1,000 may be imposed for misconduct. A fee of $50 will be charged for every incorrectly classified W-2 form. Penalties amounting to 1.5% of the withheld income taxes will be imposed.
This is why the companies freak out when you use a W-8BN or a 673 W-4 W-4V, etc., because they don't want to get these penalties or possibly shut down. So the government has them shaking in their boots. That's why. But if they would do their research, which most of them don't, because they're afraid to stray from anything here, because 99% of people who come through them do the W-4 and then get a W-2. I don't want to learn anything else. Let's not even hire those people. Screw that. That's scary.
Imposed. The employee's FICA taxes, which includes Social Security and Medicare, were not withheld at a rate of 40%.
Jesus, it's
The tax calculation is impacted by the classification of employees, affecting both the employer and the workers. Employers must withhold income taxes and pay taxes for wages paid to W-2 employees. Payments made to 1099 contractors are typically not subject to tax withholding or payment.
Now notice here, they say typically. They always have to throw a little gray smudge in there. Why? This is for us and against us. Because that means as a W-9, you're not taxable. You're not subject to this tax withholding. But could you have done something at your job to be taxable? Yes, you actually could. Usually it's like a 401k or stocks and bonds because those were made in the U.S. corporation and those are their products, their creation, and they are taxable. Unless you know how to do certain legal tax avoidance events and things of that nature. Contact me for a consult, educational information only. All right, let's keep going.
Payment. When deciding if an individual providing services is an employee or independent contractor, it is necessary to evaluate all evidence that demonstrates the level of control and independence. The IRS has guidelines to determine whether the individuals providing services are employees or independent contractors. At a high level, a business must assess the facts of the engagement that provide evidence of the degree of control and independence. This assessment falls into three categories. Behavioral. Does the company control or have the right to control what the worker does and how the worker does his or her job? Financial. Are the business aspects of the worker's job controlled by the payer? These include things like how the worker is paid, whether expenses are reimbursed, who provides tools/supplies, etc. Type of relationship. Are there written contracts or employee-type benefits, i.e. pension plan, insurance, vacation pay, etc.? Will the relationship continue and is the work performed a key aspect of the business?
Now, understand, guys, this is a key part here. If you go to your employer and you say, hey, look, I want to do my same job, but I want to be paid as a W-9. As long as they don't have any internal rules against that, you're going to be fine. And here's the thing. Generally, they will pay you more money. Why would they do that? Because now that they don't have to take out your taxes, they don't have to pay all these holiday hours and dental and this and that. So yes, you would be responsible for some of that, okay? Or pretty much all of that. They can pay you more. Because they don't have all those little things that have to come out of your check and that they have to then pay and contribute to. So if you're going to do this, make sure you talk over everything and as always, vet the information before redoing things. Make sure this is what you want to do. You guys are all grown or should be. If not, don't be on my channel. This is for state citizens, nationals, and whatever else, people who are not trying to operate per se as a U.S. citizen, though you have it as a status, uh, for legal purposes. But generally, the people who've already done this in the little testing groups, we do these things before they come out. So we've been on this for years lightly. Um, the employers were like, yeah, I'll just pay you. I can pay you more now. But earthquake. But remember, that also means you may not get certain benefits. So talk over with your employer and negotiate what you still want, what you can compromise on, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll tell you this, there's a lot of employers out there that have creative financing options for taking care of you. So they may not give you this specific benefit, but say they will remove you from being in a group, say a group dental policy, which is expensive, and maybe they'll directly pay for a private dental insurance or group that's usually or insurance card that's going to be far cheaper for them than what they have. Educational information only. Roll the tape.
Business. A W-9, a request for taxpayer identification number and certification, does it exactly what it sounds like. It captures the information of the person or company doing work for your business. From here, you can record their wages. It differs from a W-4 form in the sense that it does not have any kind of withholding or allowance information. Its main purpose is to gather the information of the payee so you can accurately complete a 1099 form. A 1099 NEC or 1099 form, summary of payments. A 1099 form is to a W-9 form like a W-2 form is to a W-4 form. Except withholdings are not recorded in employment taxes, like Social Security taxes and Medicare taxes, that amount to 15.3% of a worker's gross wages, are paid in full by the independent contractor.
Now remember, so they're basically saying here, they're not giving you the additional options of the revocation, which would include your W-8BN or other appropriate form to use, nor your 15103 or etc. 8233, blah, blah, blah. They're just saying, well, if you're an independent contractor, you better pay your taxes. And so you should, if you are regarding yourself as a U.S. citizen and you've done taxable events. But if you're telling them you're a non-employee, you're telling them that you're basically a non-resident alien for tax purposes. And this is your receipt. So you can use it for your records so that if you are taxable or done taxable events, you then utilize this form and you square everything up with your local, state, or government.
Contractor. Like a W-2 form, a 1099 form must be filled out by the employer and provided to the individual or entity by January 31st. This form will report what is paid to the individual or entity and their reporting details, like name, address, SSN or TIN, but all of the tax payments are up to the payee of this form.
So that would be you. You are then responsible because then you are operating as the employer, or well, not, well, you are technically the employer, but more so you are taking the responsibility of being the withholding agent. I'm not going to go into all the details, but as the withholding agent, there's a lot of power in that. Now, of course, it seems here that Prime Pay will help you through certain filings and whatever else. So if you want to use their services, go ahead. I do not know how much they charge. It's just an internet page that came up in one of my searches about the differences there. So you are on your own with the information from that site and the information in general. So that's it, guys. That is it. That is it. If you want to be tax exempt, these are your steps. Feel free to use it as you see fit. Once again, we are not responsible for anything through our materials, words, things, said, blah, 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 whatsoever. Blah, 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 blah. All right, so that's it, guys. If you see anybody using any of my information for ill purposes or calling me the S word or anything else like that, report them or the video or the channel or whatever it needs to be for bullying, slandering, and defamation of character. Thank you in advance. This is all just education and entertainment purposes. If you don't like it, well, then just go to another channel. I never really quite understood why people, when I'm literally just reading things off of there and giving you an interpretation of information, like to go, well, I didn't like that video. And then you guys those people keep coming back. So I guess you must like something here. As long as you're entertained, as always, that's what this is. So, to everybody else in general, to the great people out there, keep your head up and stay healthy. Be aware that the system is designed to work if you understand the information and you educate yourself or you ask the right questions. To the naysayers, thumb downers out there, I think there's like 6 or 7 of you guys out there. Um, get your life right. Why are you against information that is only trying to help the American people? So it tells me either you're a judge, an attorney or a lawyer, or my girlfriend's ex-boyfriend or friends, boyfriends, or I dated one of your daughters. I mean, that's really the only people out there I could see. They're going, well, I don't like this guy said don't pay taxes and here's how you do it. Or maybe a CPA. I've throw some CPAs in there. Whatever it is, it's it is what it is. But if you ask me, and I get it, it can be a little scary because we're talking about things that may make your entire industry go away. But if it doesn't bother you that you are trapping people in for profit, sounds like you're jealous of people like me who do it the right way for freeing minds and behinds. Sounds like you're a traitor to me. Once again, this information is only for those people who want to practice your private rights under the Constitution. If we didn't have these things, then I wouldn't be making these videos. So take care of yourselves out there, no matter who you are, what you believe in. And I'll make some more videos. And if you guys like this, well, then hit that bell, like, and subscribe. If you're new here, welcome to the tribe. And don't forget, I am your foreign national born natural. And I'll talk to you guys later.